Ambassador Marcus Kane stood up from his chair in the big crystal meeting room. His face showed anger that he tried to hide. For 3 years, humans had sat in these talks. They watched as the old alien races divided up human colonies like pieces of food on a plate. "You give us nothing," Marcus said loudly. His voice cut through the strange air of the room. 14 empty worlds for 37 good colonies that we built with our own hands. High Leader Velton from the Zenthari people sat back in his metal chair. His 4 eyes looked at Marcus like he was making a joke. "Humans are new to this galaxy. You must learn where you belong before you can claim good planets." The snake-like alien from the Corvan Empire nodded. General Thexan agreed with Velton. "Your people have been in space for only 200 years. We have ruled these areas for thousands of years." Marcus felt his teeth pressed together hard. Behind him sat the other human leaders. Admiral Lisa Torres, Governor James Wright, and Chief Diplomat Elena Vasquez stayed in their seats, but everyone could feel they were angry too. They knew this would happen, but it still hurt to see how the council treated them. "Also," Velton continued with his fake nice voice, "the council will protect your small fleet. For a fair payment, of course." The insult was clear. The council thought human ships were weak and funny. But human colonies had fought off space pirates and border fights for many years without any help from the council. Marcus stood taller. His gray hair caught the strange light of the room. "We came here thinking the council cared about fairness and respect between different peoples." "And you got fairness," Velton said smoothly. "Fairness equal to what your people have given to galaxy civilization." Admiral Torres finally stood up. Her soldier training showed in how she moved. "What we gave includes new medical ways that saved millions of lives across 17 different peoples. Farm improvements that ended the big hunger in the sector area. Defense technology that helped many worlds defend themselves. Technology we could have made ourselves given time," said Counselor Zephon of the ethereal domain. His gas-like body moved with dislike. "You just happened to find them first." The look-down attitude in the room was choking. Marcus looked around at the meeting members. Beings from 43 different peoples all nodded, with the 3 oldest races that controlled the council. Not one voice spoke up for humans. Elena Vasquez leaned forward to try one more time. "Maybe we could talk about other arrangements." "The terms are final," Velton declared. His metal fingers hit his chair arm. "Take our good offer or go back to your lonely corner of the galaxy." Marcus felt something break inside him. For too long, humans had tried to prove they deserved respect among the stars. They had shared their discoveries freely. They had helped during bad times. They had kept peace even when others made them angry. Yet here they sat, being treated like children begging for food scraps from adults. He reached into his meeting case and took out a sealed data pad. He placed it carefully on the talk table. "Then these talks are over." The room made surprised sounds. Velton looked at the data pad with new interest. "What is that, Ambassador?" "Official notice that humanity is leaving all talks with the Galactic Council," Marcus replied. His voice stayed steady even though what he was doing was huge. "Starting now, all human colonies, trade routes, and territories are declared independent of council control." General Thexan made an angry snake sound. His reptile face twisted. "You cannot just declare freedom from the council. No people have ever done that before. No people have ever been pushed this far," Admiral Torres said, moving to stand beside Marcus. "But there is a first time for everything." Velton's amusement was gone, replaced by something like worry. "Ambassador Kane, I ask you to think again. Humanity benefits greatly from council membership. Without our protection, your colonies will be open to attacks. Your trade routes will be undefended. Our business is no longer your concern," Marcus said firmly. Governor Wright and Elena Vasquez now stood with their team members, showing they all agreed. "Humanity leaves the Galactic Council starting now." The silence that followed was complete. For a moment, the most powerful beings in the galaxy seemed truly shocked. The idea of a people simply walking away from the council had never happened before. Finally, Counselor Zephon's gas body moved with what looked like anger. "This is foolish. He will come crawling back within a year, begging to be let back in." Marcus picked up his meeting case and nodded to his team. As they moved toward the room's exit, he stopped and looked back at the council members. "Counselors, you made a big mistake today. You thought humanity's desire for peace meant we would accept any terms you offered. You were wrong." The 4 human delegates walked out of the crystal room. Their footsteps echoed in the shocked silence. Behind them, 43 different peoples watched in confusion as humanity did something no one had ever dared to do before. They simply left. As the room doors closed behind them, Marcus allowed himself a small, serious smile. The council had wanted to see what humans were made of. They were about to find out. Outside the council building, Admiral Torres walked beside Marcus. "Sir, are you sure about this? We are taking a huge risk." Marcus looked up at the alien sky above the council world. Strange colors moved in patterns that human eyes found hard to understand. "Lisa, we tried their way. We shared our knowledge. We followed their rules. We asked nicely for respect." He turned to look at his team. "They responded by treating us like primitive children who should be grateful for scraps. That ends today." Elena Vasquez looked worried. "The other species will see this as rebellion. Some might support the council against us. Some might," Marcus agreed, "but others might see it as courage. How many junior species in the council are happy with their treatment? How many have wanted to speak up but were too afraid?" Governor Wright nodded slowly. "The Altarians have complained about territory assignments for years. The Vegans have questioned tribute payments. Even the quiet Rigelians have been asking hard questions lately." "Exactly," Marcus said. "We might not be alone in this, but even if we are, at least we will face the future as free beings rather than as pets of the council." As their ship prepared to leave the council world, Marcus sent a coded message back to Earth. The message was simple but would change everything. Talks failed. Independence declared. Prepare for consequences. On Earth, President Angela Santos received the message in her office. She had been expecting it, but seeing the words still made her heart race. She pressed a button on her desk. "General Stone, please come to my office immediately. Project Prometheus is now active. The plans humans had been making in secret for years were about to begin." The council thought they were dealing with a young, weak species that would give up when faced with real pressure. They had no idea what was coming. In the depths of space, hidden human facilities powered up systems that had been waiting years for this moment. Ships that the council had never seen prepared to leave their secret bases. Intelligence networks that had been watching council activities for almost a decade prepared to act. Marcus Kane and his team had just fired the first shot in a war that would reshape the galaxy. The council thought they had seen humanity at its limits. They were about to learn they had seen nothing at all. 3 months passed since humans walked out of the peace talks. Changes began happening across the galaxy. In the fancy command center of the Xanthari main ship, High Leader Velton stared at the floating displays. His face showed growing worry. "Report," he commanded. His 4 metal eyes focused on Intelligence Officer Nixval. The thin Xanthari officer's biosuit flashed nervously. "Sir, we are getting strange reports from the outer edge territories. Human colonial forces have expanded their presence a lot." "Expanded how?" Felton's artificial voice carried a dangerous edge. Nixval changed the floating display. It showed a 3-dimensional map of the galaxy's contested regions. Red markers showed new human positions. There were far more than there should have been. 17 systems that were previously uncontested are now under human control. They have built mining operations, defense installations, and something else. General Thexan appeared in the room using quantum communication. His reptile features were twisted with anger. "My forces tried to investigate the Kepler 442 system yesterday. We lost contact with an entire scouting group." "Lost contact?" Velton's attention became sharp. "Destroyed?" "Unknown. They simply vanished. No distress signals, no debris, no trace. But we detected massive energy signatures from weapons technology we do not recognize." Councillor Zephon's gas form appeared in the meeting. His body pulsed with worry. "The ethereal domain has experienced similar incidents. Human vessels are appearing in sectors they never had access to. They are using jump routes that should not exist." Velton processed this information. His advanced brain networks calculated possibilities. "Surely they cannot have developed new technology in just months." "That is what we assumed," Thexan growled. "But our intelligence suggests otherwise. Intercepted communications indicate humanity has been working on something they call Project Pandora for the past 10 years. The name sent a strange chill through Velton's computer systems. "What kind of project?" "Unknown. But the resources they have been putting into it are huge. Every human colony has contributed materials, personnel, and research data. It is like they have been preparing for this moment." In the depths of the Proxima Centauri system, Admiral Torres stood on the bridge of the newly built UES Defiance. It was humanity's most advanced warship. Unlike the smooth artistic designs favored by the Council species, human vessels looked utilitarian and aggressive. They were built for maximum effectiveness. "Admiral," called Captain Rivera from her position at the tactical station. "Long-range sensors are detecting Council reconnaissance probes trying to penetrate the outer perimeter." Torres smiled coldly. "Let them try. Activate the Phantom Protocol." Around the Proxima system, dozens of seemingly empty regions of space suddenly erupted with energy. Cloaked human installations powered up. The Council species had spent so long looking down on humanity that they never bothered to truly study human capabilities. That oversight was about to prove costly. Back on the Council flagship, Nixval's biosuit was now strobing with alarm patterns. "Sir, we are receiving emergency transmissions from trade convoy Zeta-7. They report being intercepted by human vessels near the Vega Junction." "Intercepted for what purpose?" "They are checking cargo manifests and collecting information about Council trade routes." But here is the disturbing part. The humans knew exactly when and where to find the convoy. They had intelligence that should have been impossible to obtain. Belton's metal fingers drummed against his command chair. For centuries, the Council had maintained its power through superior technology, vast information networks, and the assumption that younger species would remain dependent on their guidance. The idea that humans might have been building their own intelligence apparatus was troubling. "What about the other junior species?" he asked. "Are they showing signs of similar independence?" Zephin's form flickered with what might have been worry. "That is perhaps the most concerning development. The Altarians have formally requested a review of their territorial assignments. The Vegan Commonwealth has suspended tribute payments pending internal restructuring. Even the normally compliant Rigelians are asking pointed questions about Council policies." The implication was clear. Humanity's defection was inspiring other species to question the established order. General Thexon's image leaned forward aggressively. "We need to make an example of the humans before this rebellion spreads. I have 3 full battle fleets ready to move on their core systems." "And do what?" Belton asked. "We still do not understand what they are capable of. Every probe we have sent into human space has either been turned away or disappeared entirely." "Then we send something they cannot turn away," Thexon snarled. "A full military force that demands answers." In the shadowy briefing room of Luna Station, Ambassador Marcus Kane sat across from a figure the Council species had never seen before. General Patricia Stone commanded humanity's Black Operations Division. "The Council is getting nervous," Stone reported. Her augmented eyes displayed tactical data directly into her visual cortex. "They are positioning forces for what looks like a probe in force against the Sol system." Marcus nodded. "Expected. How many ships?" "Thexon is assembling roughly 300 vessels. Standard Council intimidation tactics." "And our response?" Stone's smile was predatory. "Operation Prometheus goes live in 72 hours. Every major Council species will simultaneously discover just how much humanity has learned about their military capabilities, trade networks, and political structures over the past decade." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "All at once?" "The Council likes to present a united front. Let us see how united they remain when they realize humans have been inside their most secure systems for years." Stone activated a holographic display, showing the galaxy's power structure. They thought they were dealing with primitive newcomers. They are about to learn they have been sharing their galaxy with apex predators. As if summoned by their conversation, Marcus's communication device activated. Velton's artificial features appeared in the hologram. His 4 eyes blazed with barely controlled anger. "Ambassador Kane, I trust you have had time to reconsider your hasty departure from our negotiations." Marcus leaned back in his chair, completely relaxed. "Actually, Counselor, I have been quite busy. But please, what can humanity do for you?" The casual dismissal clearly infuriated Velton. "Your species' recent territorial expansion has not gone unnoticed. The Council demands an immediate explanation for your aggressive actions." "Aggressive?" Marcus laughed genuinely. "We are simply exercising the same rights every species in the galaxy enjoys. Unless, of course, you are claiming those rights do not apply to humanity. You know perfectly well what I mean. Your forces are operating in sectors far beyond your assigned territories." "Assigned by whom?" Marcus asked sweetly. "We withdrew from the Council, remember? Your assignments no longer apply to us." Velton's metal features twisted with frustration. The Council will not tolerate this disruption of galactic order. Return to your designated space immediately or face the consequences. Marcus stood up. His expression hardened. Councillor Velton, let me be very clear. Humanity tried cooperation. We offered friendship, shared our knowledge, and sought peaceful coexistence. You responded with condescension and territorial demands. He leaned toward the hologram. But you made one critical miscalculation. You assumed that because we sought peace, we were incapable of war. The transmission ended abruptly. Velton stared at empty space. On Luna Station, General Stone checked her chronometer. 68 hours until Prometheus. Marcus nodded grimly. The Council wanted to know what humans are capable of when pushed too far. They are about to find out. General Thexon stood on the command deck of his flagship, the Corvin's Wrath. He watched his assembled war fleet prepare for departure. 300 vessels from a dozen different Council species hung in formation around the massive dreadnought. Their varied designs created a display of technological superiority that had dominated the galaxy for thousands of years. Status report, he growled to his tactical officer. All vessels ready for jump to the Sol system, General. Long-range scanners show minimal human fleet presence. Intelligence suggests they are concentrating their forces around their core worlds. Thexon's reptile features twisted into what passed for a smile among his species. Predictable. They are going to try to defend their homeworld. He activated the fleet communication array. All vessels, this is General Thexon. We jump to human space in 30 minutes. Our mission is simple. Demonstrate Council authority and force humanity back into compliance. What the General did not know was that his secure communications were being intercepted by a human intelligence operative named Dr. Alex Morgan. Morgan sat in a facility buried deep beneath the Martian surface. His fingers danced across holographic interfaces as he monitored not just Thexon's fleet, but similar preparations across the entire Council sphere. Prometheus Control, this is Monitor Station 7. Morgan spoke into his headset. Council forces are moving on schedule. Centauri surveillance ships are repositioning around the Rigel sector. Ethereal domain forces are mobilizing near the galactic core. All targets are in position. The response came from General Stone herself. Confirmed, 7. Execute Prometheus on my mark. Across the galaxy, similar scenes were playing out as human operatives who had spent years infiltrating Council society prepared to reveal just how deeply humanity had penetrated their enemy's infrastructure. Hi. Leader Velton was reviewing tactical reports when his primary data system suddenly went dark. Emergency lighting bathed his command chamber in an ominous red glow as backup systems struggled to compensate. What is happening? He demanded. His intelligence coordinator, Nixval, was frantically working at multiple control interfaces. Sir, we are experiencing massive system failures across all networks. It is like something is systematically dismantling our information grid. Impossible. Our systems are protected by quantum encryption barriers that would take centuries to break. Nixval's biosuit began flashing critical alerts. Sir, the barriers are not being broken. They are being bypassed entirely. Whatever is doing this has administrative access codes. Before Velton could respond, every display in the command center activated simultaneously. They all showed the same image. Ambassador Marcus Kane sitting calmly in what appeared to be a standard human briefing room. Greetings, Leader Velton, Marcus said. His voice carried clearly through the chamber's audio systems. I hope we have not interrupted anything important. Kane, Velton snarled. What is the meaning of this intrusion? Just a small demonstration of human capabilities, Marcus replied pleasantly. You see, while you were busy treating us like primitive children, we were doing what humans do best. Adapting, learning, and preparing. Similar scenes were occurring throughout the Council sphere. On the ethereal domain's homeworld, Counselor Zephon watched in horror as his species' most secure computational matrices were infiltrated and controlled by unknown human systems. General Thexon found his fleet's navigation computers displaying human star charts instead of Council data. But the most shocking revelation was yet to come. You are probably wondering how we managed to penetrate your security systems, Marcus continued. His image now appeared on screens across 43 different worlds. The answer is quite simple. We have been inside your networks for over 8 years. The statement sent shockwaves through the Council leadership. 8 years meant humanity had been gathering intelligence since before their first contact with the Council. You see, Marcus explained. When humanity first detected Council communications, we made a strategic decision. Rather than announce ourselves immediately, we spent several years studying your society, your technology, and your methods. We learned your languages, mapped your trade routes, and identified your power structures. Dr. Morgan's voice echoed in his earpiece. All surveillance networks compromised and under human control. Enemy fleet positions and capabilities fully mapped. Marcus nodded slightly before continuing his broadcast. By the time we made formal contact, humanity already knew more about the Galactic Council than most of its member species. We knew about your territorial disputes, your resource allocation systems, and your rather low opinion of younger civilizations. In his command chamber, Felton was experiencing something approximating panic. If they have had access to our networks for 8 years, they know everything, Nixval confirmed. His biosuit now cycled through alarm colors so rapidly it was almost strobing. Fleet movements, defensive positions, political negotiations, trade agreements, everything. Marcus's image smiled coldly. But knowledge is just the first step. The real question is, what does humanity intend to do with all this information? As if in response to his question, alerts began flooding in from across Council space. Human vessels, not the crude utilitarian ships the Council expected, but sleek advanced warships that had apparently been hidden for months, were emerging from seemingly empty regions of space. General Stone's voice cut across all Council communication frequencies. Attention, Council forces. You are hereby ordered to withdraw from all disputed territories and return to your core systems immediately. General Thexon's reptile roar of rage echoed through his flagship's bridge. Impossible. How can they have ships in positions we have never detected? His tactical officer's voice was shaking. Sir, our sensors are showing human vessels in 17 systems we thought were unoccupied. They are everywhere. The truth was beginning to dawn on the Council leadership. Humanity had not just been hiding in their assigned corner of the galaxy. They had been systematically expanding their presence while remaining completely undetected. Ambassador Kane's broadcast continued. For too long, the Council has operated under the assumption that military might and technological superiority automatically grant political authority. You have grown comfortable in your dominance, secure in the belief that younger species will always remain dependent on your guidance. On the bridge of the UES Defiance, Admiral Torres watched as her fleet moved into attack positions around General Thexon's armada. The Council ships found themselves surrounded by human vessels that had appeared as if from nowhere. Admiral, Captain Rivera reported, all human fleets are in position. Operation Prometheus is fully deployed. Torres activated her communication array. General Thexon, this is Admiral Torres of the United Earth Space Command. Your fleet is now surrounded by superior forces. I strongly suggest you reconsider your current course of action. Thexon's reply crackled with fury and disbelief. Surrounded by what? We see perhaps 50 human vessels. Look again, General. And this time, use full-spectrum scanners. When Thexon's forces activated their most advanced detection systems, the tactical display transformed completely. What had appeared to be 50 human ships revealed itself to be over 200. Emerging from sophisticated cloaking systems the Council had never encountered before. Back on the Council's home worlds, Marcus Kane prepared to deliver the final blow to their assumptions about human capabilities. The Galactic Council made a fundamental error, he said. His voice now carried across the entire galaxy, as human operatives seized control of every major communication network. You assumed that because humanity sought peace, we were incapable of war. You believed that because we shared our technology freely, we had no secrets of our own. He leaned forward, his expression hardening. You were wrong on both counts. Dr. Morgan activated the final phase of Prometheus. Across Council space, detailed intelligence files began appearing on government computers, military databases, and public information networks. Trade routes that had been secret for centuries were published openly. Military deployment patterns were revealed in embarrassing detail. Political scandals that had been carefully buried surfaced simultaneously on dozens of worlds. This is what humanity learned during our 8 years of observation, Marcus continued. Every corruption scheme, every territorial grab, Every backroom deal that kept your populations in line while the council species grew fat on tribute and resources. The effect was immediate and devastating. On world after world, populations that had lived under council rule for generations suddenly had access to information that revealed the true nature of their governments. Activities, riots began on 7 worlds. Within the first hour, the age of the Galactic Council's unquestioned authority is over, Marcus declared. Humanity offers a simple choice: negotiate with us as equals, or continue to deal with the consequences of treating us as inferiors. The transmission ended, leaving the council leadership in stunned silence. General Stone's voice came over all military frequencies. All council forces have exactly 24 hours to withdraw from disputed territories. Any vessel that fails to comply will be treated as a hostile combatant. High Leader Velton stared at his dark screens. His mechanical mind raced through options and found none that did not end in disaster. In a single coordinated action, humanity had demonstrated capabilities that rivaled or exceeded those of the galaxy's oldest civilizations. They had also proven they were no longer interested in asking for permission. The war that followed would reshape the galaxy forever. 6 weeks after Prometheus unleashed humanity's true capabilities, the galaxy balanced on the edge of complete chaos. High Leader Velton stood in what remained of his command center. Half of its systems were still dark from ongoing human cyber warfare operations. The reports flowing in painted a picture of systematic collapse across the Council's sphere of influence. "Sir," Intelligence Officer Nixval announced. His biosuit flickered with exhaustion patterns. "We have lost contact with the Altarian Sector Command. Latest reports indicate their entire fleet has defected to human-backed forces." Velton's 4 metal eyes focused on the tactical display showing the galaxy's current state. Red zones indicated open warfare. Yellow showed systems in revolt. The expanding green markers represented territories now under human influence. The green was spreading like a disease. "What about the Vegan Commonwealth?" he asked. "Gone," Nixval replied flatly. "They have declared complete independence and signed a mutual defense pact with Earth. The Rigelians followed suit yesterday." General Thexon's holographic image materialized. His reptile features bore scars from recent battles. "My forces have been engaged in running skirmishes with human fleets across 17 sectors. Velton, we are not just losing. We are being systematically dismantled." "Explain," Velton demanded. "They do not fight like any species we have encountered," Thexon growled. "No honor duels, no formal battle lines, no adherence to the Galactic Warfare Accords. They strike from multiple directions simultaneously, using intelligence we did not know they possessed to target our supply lines, communication relays, and command structures." Counselor Zephon's gas form shimmered into the conference. His body pulsed with worry. "The situation is worse than military defeats. The information they released through Prometheus has triggered revolutions on 37 worlds. Populations that accepted council authority for centuries are now demanding independence." The scope of the disaster was unprecedented. In releasing detailed intelligence about council operations, humanity had not only revealed military capabilities, but had also exposed decades of corruption, exploitation, and manipulation that kept the galactic government in power. Deep in the Vega system, Commander Diana Ross stood on the bridge of the UES Retribution. She reviewed casualty reports from the latest engagement. The human fleet had just finished destroying a council supply convoy, attempting to reinforce besieged garrison forces on Vega Prime. "Commander," reported Lieutenant Foster from the tactical station, "long-range sensors are detecting council reinforcements approaching the outer system." "Looks like General Thexon's personal fleet," Ross smiled grimly. "Finally. We have been hunting that bastard for weeks." She activated the fleet communication array. "All vessels, this is Commander Ross. Target is General Thexon's flagship. Remember, the reptile general is wanted alive for war crimes prosecution. What Thexon did not know was that his secure approach route had been compromised months ago. Human intelligence operatives had identified every major jump route the council forces used, turning what should have been advantages into death traps. As his fleet emerged from hyperspace, Thexon found himself facing not the scattered human forces he expected, but a coordinated armada of over 300 vessels in perfect attack formation. "Impossible," he snarled. "How do they know our approach vector?" His tactical officer's voice carried barely suppressed panic. "Sir, they are jamming our communications and navigation systems. We cannot contact Fleet Command or plot an escape route. The battle that followed was less a fight than an execution. Human forces moved with precision that spoke of months of preparation. They targeted Council vessels' specific weaknesses with weapons designed to exploit known vulnerabilities. Within 2 hours, Thexan's once mighty armada was reduced to burning wreckage. The general himself was captured when human boarding parties seized his crippled flagship. On Earth, Ambassador Marcus Kane received the news while reviewing reports from across the galaxy. His aide, Director Phillips, entered his office with a mixture of satisfaction and concern on her face. "Sir, we have received confirmation that General Thexan is in custody. That leaves only the Xanthari and Ethereal forces as organized military threats." Marcus nodded, but his expression remained troubled. "What about civilian casualties?" Phillips consulted her data pad. "Higher than we would like, but within acceptable parameters. The bigger concern is political destabilization. 17 governments have collapsed in the past month. Some of the emerging factions are problematic. This was the dark side of humanity's campaign against the Council, in exposing the corruption and authoritarian control that held the Galactic government together. They had also removed the structures that maintained order across hundreds of worlds. Some planets were transitioning smoothly to independence, but others were descending into chaos. "Any word from the resistance movements?" Marcus asked. "Mixed results. The Andromedan Liberation Front has successfully established a provisional government and is requesting formal recognition. But the Centauri rebels are fragmenting into 3 separate factions, and there are reports of ethnic violence on New Rigel." Marcus rubbed his temples. This was the price of revolution. Sometimes the cure was as painful as the disease. Meanwhile, in the depths of space between galaxies, a meeting was taking place that would change the nature of the conflict entirely. High Leader Velton's personal transport approached a massive vessel that few beings in the galaxy knew existed, the Nexus Station, home to the Harbingers. The Harbingers were the galaxy's oldest species, predating even the Council by millions of years. They had withdrawn from active galactic politics eons ago, content to observe and occasionally guide younger races from the shadows. Their technology was so advanced it bordered on the incomprehensible. Velton was escorted through corridors that seemed to bend reality itself. He passed chambers where entire star systems were displayed as 3-dimensional models. Finally, he was brought before the Harbinger Prime, a being of pure energy contained within a crystalline matrix. "Young Xanthari," the Harbinger Prime's voice resonated directly in Velton's neural implants. "You come seeking aid against the humans. The balance of power is collapsing," Velton explained desperately. "If humanity continues their expansion, the entire galactic order will collapse." "Will change," the Harbinger Prime interrupted, "as it has changed many times before. Tell me, Xanthari, why should the Harbingers intervene in this conflict?" Velton's metal features displayed confusion. "Because humanity threatens the stability you have helped maintain for thousands of years. Does it? Or does humanity simply threaten your species' dominance?" The Harbinger Prime's energy form pulsed thoughtfully. "We have observed the humans closely since their emergence. They are interesting. They are dangerous," Velton insisted. "Their expansion is uncontrolled, their methods ruthless. They have destabilized dozens of worlds." "Yes," the Harbinger Prime agreed. "And in doing so, they have accomplished something remarkable. They have forced evolutionary pressure on a galaxy that had become stagnant. For too long, the Council species have ruled through fear and control rather than innovation and growth." Velton felt a chill that had nothing to do with the station's temperature. "You are not going to help us." "On the contrary," the Harbinger Prime replied, "we are going to help you. But perhaps not in the way you expect." The crystalline being began to glow more brightly. "Return to your people, Xanthari. Tell them the Harbingers offer a single option: surrender." "Surrender?" Felton's artificial voice cracked with disbelief. "Unconditional surrender to humanity, with terms to be negotiated directly with Earth's government. The alternative is complete annihilation." Velton began to protest, but the Harbinger Prime cut him off. "You misunderstand the situation, young one. The humans have already won this war. They won it the moment they walked away from your negotiations and began acting as equals rather than supplicants. What you are experiencing now is not a war. It is the inevitable conclusion of your own failures." The Harbinger's form pulsed with what might have been amusement. "Did you truly believe that a species capable of reaching the stars in mere centuries would remain content with the scraps you offered them? Did you think beings who had survived and thrived on one of the galaxy's most hostile worlds would be intimidated by your displays of superior technology? Velton's advanced neural networks processed the implications, and he felt something approaching despair. You are saying humanity was always destined to challenge us. Not challenge, Zinthari, replace. The humans represent evolution in action, a young species with the adaptability and drive necessary to take the next step in galactic civilization. The Council species have become comfortable with power, corrupt with authority. You have forgotten what it means to struggle, to adapt, to grow. The audience was clearly over as crystalline barriers began forming around Velton, preparing to transport him back to his ship. Remember our terms, Zinthari. Surrender now, while you still have something left to negotiate with. Continue this war, and humanity will have no choice but to treat you as extinct civilizations. As Velton's transport departed the Nexus station, he carried with him a truth that would reshape the galaxy's future. The war with humanity was not about territory or resources. It was about survival, and only one side could win. 3 months after the Harbinger's ultimatum, High Leader Velton stood in a place he had never imagined he would see. The United Nations Assembly Hall in New York City, Earth. The building was modest by galactic standards. It was constructed of simple materials and lacked the biomechanical elegance of Zinthari architecture or the ethereal beauty of ethereal domain structures. Yet this humble chamber now held the fate of the entire galaxy. Beside him stood the remnants of the once mighty Galactic Council. Councillor Zephan's diminished gas form, Admiral Kexter representing the defeated Corvan Empire, and delegates from the few remaining Council species that had survived the war. All of them bore the unmistakable marks of defeat, scars, exhaustion, and the hollow look of beings who had seen their world order collapse. Across from them sat humanity's negotiating team, led by Ambassador Marcus Kane and flanked by Admiral Torres, General Stone, and a woman Velton had never encountered before, Secretary of State Rebecca Martinez, Earth's chief diplomat. Before we begin, Secretary Martinez said, her voice carrying the quiet authority of someone who spoke for a victorious civilization, I want to acknowledge the courage it took for your peoples to come here today. Surrender is never easy, especially for species that have ruled the galaxy for thousands of years. Velton's metal features registered bitter irony at the humans' diplomatic politeness. Even in victory, they offered their defeated enemies dignity, something the Council had never extended to younger species. However, Martinez continued, let us be clear about the current situation. The Galactic Council as a governing body has ceased to exist. Your military forces have been defeated or have defected to human allied forces. Over 60% of your former territories have declared independence and requested Earth's protection. She activated a holographic display showing the galaxy's current political map. Where once the Council's territories had dominated the spiral arms in blocks of color, now a complex patchwork of independent worlds, human allied systems, and contested zones created a much more diverse pattern. The question before us today is simple. What kind of future do we want to build from the ashes of the old order? Admiral Kexter, his reptile features bearing cybernetic replacements for injuries suffered during the war, leaned forward aggressively. You humans speak of building a future, but what you have created is chaos. Dozens of worlds are in civil war. Trade routes that sustained billions have collapsed. Your liberation has cost more lives than centuries of Council rule. The accusation hung in the air like a challenge. Velton watched Ambassador Kane's reaction carefully, noting the human's slight nod of acknowledgement. Admiral Kexter raises a valid point, Kane admitted. The transition from Council rule to independent governance has been messy. But let me ask you this. Whose fault is that? Before the Corvan could respond, Kane continued. For centuries, your Council maintained power by keeping member species dependent and divided. You deliberately prevented the development of local governance structures, suppressed independent economic development, and created systems where worlds could only survive through Council oversight. General Stone spoke for the first time. Her augmented eyes displayed tactical data as she addressed the defeated delegates. Did you really expect that suddenly removing those artificial constraints would not cause temporary disruption? The chaos you are seeing is not the result of human actions. It is the result of the Council's policies finally failing. Councillor Zephan's gas form pulsed with what might have been resignation. Perhaps there is truth in what you say. But the reality remains. Billions suffer while this transition occurs. Which is why we are here, Secretary Martinez interjected smoothly. Earth is prepared to offer a comprehensive reconstruction program for all former Council territories. Medical aid, food shipments, technical advisors to help establish stable governments, and economic development assistance. She paused, letting the implications sink in. But these programs come with conditions. Velton's neural networks calculated the likely demands. Tribute payments, territorial concessions, technology transfers, the standard terms of conquest. He prepared himself for the humiliation of negotiating humanity's price for mercy. Instead, Martinez surprised him completely. First condition: all former Council species must formally acknowledge the independence and sovereignty of every world in their former territories. No more colonial relationships, no more tribute systems, no more assumptions that older species have the right to rule younger ones. The terms were radical, but not unexpected. Velton nodded slowly. Second condition: establishment of a new galactic governing body based on principles of equality and mutual cooperation. Every species gets one vote regardless of age, technology level, or military capability. This was more surprising. A democratic galactic government would give species like humanity enormous influence due to their rapidly expanding territory and population. Third condition, Martinez continued, complete transparency in all interspecies relations. No more secret intelligence operations, no more hidden military buildups, no more backroom deals that affect other species without their knowledge or consent. The irony was not lost on any of the delegates. Humanity was demanding the very transparency they had violated through their 8-year espionage campaign against the Council. And the final condition, Martinez said, her voice becoming harder: justice for war crimes committed during the recent conflict and during centuries of Council rule. This was what Velton had been dreading. What kind of justice? Truth and reconciliation commissions on every world that requests them. Open trials for military leaders who ordered attacks on civilian targets. Reparations for species that were exploited or oppressed under Council rule. Martinez's gaze swept across the defeated delegates, but also amnesty for those who cooperate fully with the transition process. Admiral Torres leaned forward. We are not interested in vengeance. We want to build something better than what came before. The negotiations continued for weeks, hammering out the details of what would become known as the Terran Accords. The final document was unlike any treaty in galactic history. Instead of dictating terms to the defeated, it established frameworks for cooperation, mutual defense, and shared prosperity. The new Galactic Democratic Union would be headquartered on a neutral world, with Earth serving as the guarantor of its charter. Species that had never been allowed to speak in their own defense under Council rule were granted full voting rights. Trade routes would be open to all species, regulated only by environmental and safety concerns rather than political favoritism. Perhaps most importantly, the Accords established the principle that no species had the right to rule another without consent. A direct repudiation of everything the Council had stood for. As Velton signed the final documents, he reflected on the irony of the situation. Humanity had accomplished in months what the Council claimed was impossible. They had created a system where different species could coexist as equals, rather than in hierarchical relationships determined by age and technology. Leader Velton, Ambassador Kane said as the signing ceremony concluded, I want you to know that humanity bears no ill will toward your people. The Zenthari have contributed much to galactic civilization. We hope that will continue under the new order. Velton looked at this human who had been his enemy and found himself genuinely confused by what he saw. Where he had expected triumphant conquerors, he found beings who seemed almost regretful about the necessity of war. Why, he asked. You have won everything. Why offer mercy to those who oppressed you? Kane smiled sadly. Because mercy is what separates civilization from barbarism, leader. The Council ruled through fear and intimidation. We want to rule, if you can call it ruling, through hope and cooperation. 6 months later, Velton stood in the Assembly, hall of the new Galactic Democratic Union. He watched delegates from 127 different species debate trade regulations with a passion that would have been unthinkable under Council rule. The Zenthari Collective now held exactly one vote among many. Their opinions were valued but not dominant. It was, he had to admit, remarkably democratic. Admiral Torres approached him during a break in the session. "Any regrets, leader?" Felton considered the question carefully. His people had lost their empire, their assumed superiority, their unquestioned authority over younger species. But they had gained something unexpected. Respect earned through contribution rather than demanded through force. "I regret that it took a war to teach us what humanity understood from the beginning," he replied. "That strength comes not from controlling others but from working together as equals." Torres nodded. "It took us a while to learn that lesson too. The important thing is that we did learn it." As the session resumed, Felton listened to a young Altarian delegate passionately arguing for environmental protections in the Outer Rim territories. Beside her, a Vegan representative offered technical solutions, while a human advisor provided economic impact assessments. This was what the galaxy could have been all along, he realized. Not a hierarchy of ancient species ruling over younger ones, but a community of equals working together toward common goals. The Council had ruled through the assumption that some beings were naturally superior to others. Humanity had proven that the only real superiority lay in the wisdom to reject that assumption entirely. In the end, that wisdom had not just won them a war, it had won them a galaxy. The great meeting hall on Nexus Prime buzzed with worried voices. Leaders from 12 different alien races sat around a massive circular table made of glowing crystal. The air felt heavy with fear and desperation. Outside the tall windows, 3 moons hung in the purple sky like watching eyes. Admiral Keth stood at the front of the room. His blue scales caught the light as he moved, and his yellow eyes looked tired. He had been fighting a losing war for months now. Behind him, a holographic display showed the current state of the galaxy. Red dots marked the places where entire worlds had been destroyed. "Friends and allies," Keth began, his voice carrying across the silent room. "We have lost 17 colonies in the past few months. The Void Reapers are moving faster than we expected. Their ships can pass through our shields like they are made of air. Our weapons barely scratch their hulls." A tall, thin being with silver skin raised her hand. Ambassador Lyra spoke in a voice that sounded like wind chimes. "What about the outer colonies? Should we not move the people to safer places? Move them where?" General Voss slammed his metal fist on the table. The sound echoed through the hall like thunder. "There are no safe places left. These creatures destroy everything they touch. We are warriors, not runners hiding in caves." The argument that followed was loud and angry. Some wanted to fight. Others wanted to run. Nobody had any good ideas about how to win. The Void Reapers had technology that was far beyond anything the Federation had ever seen. From the back of the room, an old voice spoke quietly. "There might be another way." Everyone turned to look. Elder Nyx walked slowly toward the table, his walking stick clicking on the smooth floor. He was ancient, even by the standards of his long-lived race. His pale eyes held the memories of 1,000 years. "What are you talking about, old one?" General Voss asked, though his tone was more respectful now. Elder Nyx stopped beside the holographic display. He touched one of the controls and new images appeared. They showed star maps from long ago when the galaxy was younger. "In the old records," he said softly, "there are stories, legends of a race called humans. They came from a small blue world on the edge of the galaxy. These humans were said to be the greatest warriors who ever lived." Some of the aliens around the table laughed. Others looked confused. Humans were just stories, everyone knew that. "Fairy tales will not save us," Admiral Keth said, though he spoke kindly to the old scholar. But Elder Nyx continued. "According to the legends, human ships were like floating cities of death. They carried weapons that could crack planets in half. And the humans themselves, they fought with such fury that their enemies would flee rather than face them in battle. Even if these humans existed," Ambassador Lyra said gently, "they disappeared long ago. No one has seen them for over 1,000 years. They are just myths now." "Perhaps," Elder Nyx nodded slowly, "but the old records say something else. They say the humans did not die out. They say the humans chose to leave, to go somewhere beyond the known galaxy. The records say they would return when the darkness came again." General Voss stood up, his armor clanking. "This is foolish talk. We need weapons and ships, not bedtime stories for children." "What kind of weapons did these mythical humans have?" asked Admiral Keth. He did not believe the stories, but he was desperate enough to listen. Elder Nyx touched the controls again. New images appeared showing strange ship designs unlike anything in the current galaxy. The records speak of something called plasma cannons that could melt entire fleets. They had shields that could absorb any attack and send the energy back at their enemies. But their greatest weapon was something the records call human stubbornness. They would never surrender, never retreat, never stop fighting until they won or died. And where are these wonder warriors now? General Voss asked with a sneer. Gone, Elder Nix admitted, but maybe not forever. The meeting continued for hours, but nothing was decided. The Federation leaders argued about evacuation plans and defensive strategies. None of them noticed the small device hidden in the air vent above their heads. It had been recording everything they said. Far away, in the deep darkness between stars, a ship drifted silently. It looked like a piece of space junk, but inside it was very much alive. Captain Ross sat in the command chair, watching the transmission from Nexus Prime on his screen. He was human, though nobody in the Federation would recognize him as such. His people had changed during their long exile. "Did you hear that, old friend?" he asked the empty bridge. A voice answered from the speakers. It belonged to Admiral Stone, speaking from another hidden ship. "I heard. They remember us as legends. That might make this easier or much harder." Captain Ross smiled, but it was not a happy smile. "The Void Reapers are moving toward the core worlds. If we do nothing, the Federation will fall within a year. And if we reveal ourselves, then the galaxy learns that some legends are real." Ross stood up and walked to the window. Outside, he could see other ships like his own, hidden in the darkness. The human fleet had been waiting for this moment for a long time. They had watched the galaxy grow and change while they rebuilt their strength in secret. "Send the signal to all ships," Ross ordered. "It is time for humanity to come home." Across the void, dozens of hidden ships began to move. They had been scattered across the galaxy, watching and waiting. Now they would gather for the first time in 1,000 years. On Nexus Prime, Elder Nix sat alone in his study, reading the old records. Something had been bothering him since the meeting ended. He checked his calculations again, then his eyes went wide with shock. According to his data, there had been strange energy readings in several star systems over the past few weeks. The readings matched descriptions from the ancient human records. Someone with human technology had been moving through Federation space. He reached for his emergency communicator, then stopped. Who would believe him? Who would care about the paranoid fears of an old scholar? But as he sat there in the darkness, a new sound filled his study. It was coming from an old communication device that had not worked for centuries. The device was tuned to frequencies that only appeared in the most ancient records. A voice spoke, clear and strong. It used words from the old human language, a language that Elder Nix had spent his life studying. "Elder Keeper, this is Captain Ross of the Terran Defense Fleet. We have been listening to your words. We have been watching your struggles. The children of Earth are coming home." Elder Nix dropped his walking stick. His hand shook as he reached for the device. Who are you?" he whispered. "We are the ones your legends speak of," the voice replied. "We are human, and we are no longer hiding." The old scholar sat in stunned silence as the communication ended. Outside his window, he could see the 3 moons of Nexus Prime, but now there was something else in the sky. A new star that had not been there before, growing brighter by the minute. The legends were about to become reality, and the galaxy would never be the same. 3 days after the great meeting on Nexus Prime, something strange appeared on the edge of Federation space. Mining Station Omega-7 was a small outpost built into an asteroid, far from any major shipping lanes. The workers there spent their days digging rare metals from the rock and sending them back to the core worlds. Chief Engineer Blake was having his morning coffee when the alarm started ringing. Blake was a Corvan, with thick gray skin and mechanical parts replacing his left arm and eye. He had worked in space for 30 years and had never seen anything like what appeared on his sensors. "What in the 7 hells is that?" he muttered, staring at his screen. His assistant, a young Tethian named Iris, floated over to look. Her people could fly in low gravity, and her feathers shimmered blue and silver in the station lights. "I do not know," she said in her musical voice. "The computer cannot identify it. The ship is too big to be a trader, but the design does not match any military vessel in our database." The object on their screen was enormous. It was larger than a Federation battleship, but it moved with a smooth grace that seemed impossible for something so massive. Its hull was dark metal that seemed to absorb light, and strange patterns glowed along its sides. Station Commander Pike, a nervous Valorian with twitching whiskers, tried to contact the mysterious ship. "Unknown vessel, this is Mining Station Omega-7. Please identify yourself and state your business in Federation space." There was no answer. The ship continued to approach slowly, as if it had all the time in the world. "Maybe their communication system is different," suggested Iris. "Should we send a probe to investigate?" "Absolutely not," Pike snapped. "We follow protocol. Send an alert to Fleet Command and activate the defense grid." The station's few defensive weapons powered up, though everyone knew they would be useless against a ship that size. The miners stopped working and gathered around the viewing windows, trying to get a look at their mysterious visitor. Inside the approaching vessel, Commander Elena stood on the bridge watching the little mining station. She was human, though she looked different from the humans in the old Federation records. Her people had changed during their long exile, becoming stronger and faster. Her dark hair was streaked with silver, and her eyes held the weight of many battles. "Ma'am," reported Lieutenant Davis from his station, "the station has activated its defenses and sent a distress signal to Federation Command." Elena nodded. "Expected. How long until the nearest Federation patrol arrives?" 6 hours, according to their fleet movements." "Good. That gives us time." Elena turned to her tactical officer. "Marcus, begin the passive scans. I want to know everything about their technology and defenses." The human ship's sensors reached out like invisible fingers, touching every system on the mining station. The scans were so advanced that they learned more in 5 minutes than Federation scientists could discover in months of study. "Interesting," Marcus reported. "Their shields are based on crystalline matrix technology, but they are using it wrong. Their power systems are inefficient, and their weapons are at least 50 years behind what they could build with the same materials." Elena smiled sadly. "1,000 years ago, we taught them how to build those shields. They have forgotten so much." On the mining station, Chief Engineer Blake noticed something odd. His instruments were picking up energy patterns that made no sense. The mysterious ship was scanning them, but the scans were unlike anything he had ever seen. "Commander Pike," he called over the intercom, "you need to see this. The energy signatures from that ship. They are not matching anything in our records. This technology is completely unknown." Pike rushed to the engineering section, his whiskers twitching faster now. "What do you mean unknown? Everything in the galaxy is cataloged." "Not this," Blake pointed at his screen. "Look at these readings. The power output alone should be impossible. And these scan patterns, they are learning our systems faster than our computers can track them." Meanwhile, in the deep archives on Nexus Prime, Elder Nix was having the strangest day of his very long life. After his conversation with the mysterious human, he had spent hours searching through the oldest records. What he found made his ancient heart race with excitement and terror. "By the old gods," he whispered, staring at a data file that had been sealed for centuries. "It is all true." The file contained technical specifications for human ships from the old days. The designs matched what he was seeing in reports from across the galaxy. Over the past week, there had been dozens of sightings of unknown vessels. Ships that appeared from nowhere, observed Federation activities, then vanished again. His communication device crackled to life again. The same human voice spoke, clear and strong. "Elder Keeper, we know you are researching the old records. We know you have questions." "So many questions," Nix admitted. "Where have you been? Why did you leave? And why are you returning now?" "We left because we had to," the voice replied. "The galaxy was not ready for what we had become. We were too aggressive, too warlike. We were destroying everything we touched. But the records say humans were the greatest warriors. We were. That was the problem. When all you know how to do is fight, you solve every problem with violence. We had to learn a different way." Elder Nick sat down heavily in his chair. "And now?" "What are you now?" "We are still warriors," the voice said. "But now we fight only when fighting is the only choice left. The Void Reapers have made that choice for us." Back at Mining Station Omega-7, the mysterious ship had stopped just outside weapon range. For 2 hours it sat there, silent and watching. Then suddenly, every screen on the station lit up with the same message. The message was written in Federation Standard, but there was something different about the language. It was older, more formal, like reading ancient poetry. "People of the Federation," the message began. "We greet you after long silence. We are the children of Earth, the ones your stories call human. We have returned because the darkness threatens all life in the galaxy. Soon you will need our help. We offer it freely as we once did long ago. Do not fear us. We are not your enemies. We are your guardians returned from the long watch. Commander Pike read the message 3 times before his brain accepted what he was seeing. Humans, he whispered. Real, actual humans. The ship on their screen suddenly began to change. Panels slid back to reveal weapon systems that looked nothing like Federation technology. Energy began to build along the hull, creating patterns of light that were both beautiful and terrifying. Ma'am, Lieutenant Davis reported to Commander Elena. Federation patrol ships are approaching. 3 vessels, light cruiser class. Elena nodded. Time for a demonstration. Signal the human ships in sectors 7 and 12. Tell them to reveal themselves. Across the galaxy, dozens of hidden human vessels suddenly appeared on Federation sensors. Each ship was different, but they all shared the same deadly grace. The Federation fleets that encountered them sent panicked reports back to their commanders. On Nexus Prime, Admiral Keth received the reports with growing disbelief. Impossible, he said for the 10th time that day. There are no humans. They are myths, but the sensor data did not lie. The ships were real, and they were everywhere. They had been hiding in the darkness, watching and waiting. Now they had revealed themselves all at once. Elder Nix's communicator crackled again. Elder Keeper, tell your Federation friends that we request a meeting. It is time for old allies to speak again. The Void Reapers are moving toward your core worlds. They will arrive in less than a month. Alone you will fall. Together we might have a chance. The old scholar grabbed his emergency communicator and began sending urgent messages to every leader in the Federation. The legends had returned, and they brought both hope and the promise of a war unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. The Federation fleet gathered at Harvex Prime looked pitiful compared to what was coming. Admiral Keth stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Valorian Spear, counting his ships for the 100th time. 18 vessels, including his own. It was the largest force the Federation could gather on such short notice. Sir, reported his tactical officer Quinn, long-range sensors confirm 47 Void Reaper ships approaching. They will arrive in less than 3 hours. Keth closed his eyes and tried not to think about the 3 million civilians on the planet below. Harvex Prime was a beautiful world, covered in golden forests and crystal cities. In a few hours it would be nothing but ash and radiation. Any word from High Command about reinforcements? He asked, though he already knew the answer. Negative, sir. The nearest fleet is 6 days away. Keth nodded grimly. They would make their stand here, outnumbered more than 2 to 1 with weapons that barely worked against Void Reaper technology. It would be a glorious defeat, the kind that historians would write songs about, if there were any historians left alive to write them. Then something impossible appeared on his sensors. Sir. Quinn's voice was strange, almost frightened. I am detecting 7 new contacts approaching from the outer system. They are moving very fast. Void Reapers? No, sir. The energy signatures are completely different. These ships are not in our database. Admiral Keth felt a cold chill run down his spine. Show me. The main screen lit up with an image that took his breath away. 7 ships unlike anything he had ever seen were approaching at incredible speed. They were massive, each one larger than his flagship, but they moved with liquid grace through space. Their hulls gleamed with some kind of advanced metal that seemed to shift color as they moved. Admiral Keth of the Federation fleet. A voice suddenly filled his bridge. This is Commander Elena of the human vessel Defiant Thunder. We offer our assistance. The bridge fell completely silent. Human. The word hung in the air like a physical thing. After a moment, Keth found his voice. This is impossible. Humans are legends. You cannot be real. A sound came through the speakers that might have been laughter. Admiral, legends do not mount plasma cannons capable of cracking moons. We have been monitoring your situation. The Void Reapers will arrive in 2 hours and 53 minutes. You have 18 ships. They have 47. Those are not good odds. Keth looked at the tactical display again. The human ships had taken positions around his fleet in a defensive pattern that was both elegant and deadly. Who are you really? He asked. We are exactly who we claim to be, Elena replied. We are the descendants of the humans your ancestors knew. We have been watching from the shadows, waiting for the galaxy to need us again. Today, it seems, is that day. On the planet below, Governor Wells was trying to coordinate the evacuation of Harvex Prime's major cities. Wells was a Tethian, with bright blue feathers and large, intelligent eyes. He had been a peacetime administrator, not a wartime leader, but he was doing his best. Captain Torre, he called to his military aide. How many people have we moved to the underground shelters? Torre, a young Corvan with nervous energy, checked his tablet. About 2 million, sir. But the shelters will not protect them if the Void Reapers use planet-killer weapons. Wells nodded sadly. They both knew the evacuation was mostly for show. When the Void Reapers finished with the Federation fleet, nothing on the planet would survive. Sir, Torre said suddenly, staring at his sensor readout, I am picking up new ships in orbit, 7 large vessels, but they are not Federation design. Void Reaper scouts? Wells asked with dread. No, sir. These are something else entirely. The energy signatures are strange, unlike anything in our database. In space above the planet, the human fleet was preparing for battle. Each ship was a masterpiece of engineering, built in secret shipyards hidden in the dark spaces between stars. They carried technology that was 1,000 years more advanced than anything the Federation possessed. Captain Nathan commanded the human destroyer Wolf's Bane. His ship was the smallest in the fleet, but it carried weapons that could destroy entire city blocks. He had spent his whole life preparing for this moment, training for a war that might never come. All ships, this is Admiral Stone, a voice came through the fleet communication system. Stone commanded the flagship Retribution's Edge, the most powerful warship ever built by human hands. The Void Reapers will be here soon. Remember your training. Remember why we are here. Today we show the galaxy that humans do not abandon their friends. The Void Reaper fleet appeared at the edge of the system like a plague of darkness. Their ships were angular and black, designed to inspire fear as much as to destroy enemies. They had crushed 17 Federation colonies without losing a single vessel. They expected this battle to be just as easy. Void Reaper fleet detected, reported Quinn from the Valorian Spear. 47 ships, including 3 heavy dreadnoughts. Admiral Keth felt his stomach clench. 3 dreadnoughts. Any one of them could destroy his entire fleet. All Federation ships, came Elena's voice over the communication channel. We recommend you pull back to defensive positions around the planet. Let us handle the initial engagement. You are outnumbered almost 7 to 1, Keth protested. Admiral, Elena replied calmly, you are thinking like someone who has never fought humans before. Numbers are not everything. The 7 human ships suddenly spread out into a formation that looked random, but was actually perfectly calculated. Each vessel took a position that gave it the best possible angle of attack, while protecting its allies. Captain Julia commanded the human assault carrier Iron Resolve. Her ship carried fighter craft that were so advanced they seemed like magic to Federation observers. She watched the Void Reaper fleet approach and smiled coldly. Launch all fighters, she ordered. Show them what human pilots can do. Dozens of small craft erupted from the Iron Resolve and streaked toward the enemy fleet. They moved faster than anything the Federation had ever built, twisting and turning through space like living things. The Void Reapers opened fire first, their dark energy weapons reaching out to destroy the approaching fighters. But the human craft were not where the targeting computers expected them to be. They moved in 3 dimensions, using flight patterns that seemed to defy physics. Impossible, Admiral Keth whispered, watching his tactical display. Those fighters are pulling maneuvers that should tear them apart. Human engineering, Elena said simply. We build our machines to match our pilots, not the other way around. The first Void Reaper ship died in a flash of brilliant light as a human fighter somehow penetrated its shields and delivered a weapon that destroyed it from the inside. Then a second ship exploded, then a third. But the real shock came when the human capital ships opened fire. The Defiant Thunder's main guns erupted with beams of energy that seemed to bend space itself. The weapons hit a Void Reaper heavy cruiser and simply erased it from existence. Where there had been a massive warship, now there was only empty space and a few drifting particles. By the old gods. General Voss's voice came through the communication channel from his ship. What kind of weapons are those? The kind that end wars, replied Admiral Stone from the Retribution's Edge. The human flagship was preparing something that made the space around it ripple with contained energy. Stone's voice carried across all channels, calm and deadly. All ships, Federation and human alike, recommend immediate withdrawal to minimum safe distance. We are about to demonstrate why humans were never truly conquered. The weapon that fired from the Retribution's Edge was beyond anything in Federation records. It was a lance of pure destruction that tore through the Void Reaper formation like a sword through paper. 3 enemy heavy cruisers and their flagship simply ceased to exist, leaving only expanding clouds of superheated gas. In the shocked silence that followed, Elder Nix's voice crackled through the communication channels from Nexus Prime, where he had been monitoring the battle. The legend spoke of their greatest weapon, the old scholar said quietly. Not their technology, but their refusal to accept defeat. Today we witness the return of humanity's children. For the first time in their recorded history, the Void Reapers began to retreat. The Battle of Harvex Prime was not over. The Void Reapers had lost their flagship and several major vessels, but they were not retreating as everyone hoped. Instead, they were regrouping, their remaining ships forming a new attack pattern that Admiral Keth had never seen before. "They are adapting to our tactics," reported Quinn from his sensor station. "The Void Reapers are changing their shield frequencies and battle formation." Admiral Keth watched the enemy fleet with growing worry. Even after the devastating human attack, 32 Void Reaper ships remained. They were spreading out in a wide circle around the planet, preparing to attack from multiple directions at once. "Commander Elena," Keth called over the communication channel, "the enemy is trying to surround us. They want to force us to split our forces." "We see them," Elena replied from the defiant thunder. "Do not worry, Admiral. This is exactly what we expected them to do." Captain Nathan, commanding the Wolf's Bane, moved his destroyer to intercept a group of Void Reaper cruisers that were trying to flank the Federation fleet. His ship was fast and deadly, but he was facing 5 enemy vessels at once. "This should be interesting," Nathan muttered to his crew. "All weapons target the lead cruiser. Let us show them why humans do not fear bad odds." The Wolf's Bane opened fire with weapons that seemed to shoot pure lightning. The energy beam struck the Void Reaper shields and instead of being absorbed, somehow turned the enemy's own power against them. The first cruiser's shields collapsed and Nathan's follow-up attack tore through its hull like paper. "How is that possible?" General Voss asked over the communication channel. "Their weapons are using the enemy's energy against them." "Adaptive plasma technology," explained Captain Julia from the Iron Resolve. "We have had 1,000 years to perfect it. Every shot learns from the last one." But the Void Reapers were learning too. They began firing in coordinated volleys, trying to overwhelm the human shields through sheer volume of fire. Several human ships took damage and the Defiant Thunder's port shields flickered under a massive assault. "Elena," came Admiral Stone's voice from the Retribution's edge, "your shields are down to 60%. Fall back and let us handle this group." "Negative," Elena replied calmly. "We hold the line here. If they break through, they will have a clear shot at the planet." On Harvex Prime, Governor Wells watched the battle through orbital sensors. The underground shelters were full now, but he knew they would not protect his people if the Void Reapers reached the surface. "Captain Torre," he called to his aide, "how many civilians are still in the cities?" "About 50,000, sir. Mostly emergency workers and people who refuse to leave their homes." Wells nodded grimly. He understood the ones who stayed. Harvex Prime was a beautiful world and these were their homes. If they were going to die, they wanted to die under their own sky. "Sir," Torre said suddenly, "something is happening in orbit. The human ships are changing." Wells looked at the tactical display and gasped. The 7 human vessels were transforming before his eyes. Hull panels slid back to reveal weapon systems that had been hidden. Engine sections extended and reconfigured. In moments, each ship had become something entirely different. "What are they doing?" Wells whispered. In space, Commander Elena smiled as her ship completed its transformation. The Defiant Thunder was no longer just a battleship. It had become a mobile weapons platform with firepower equal to an entire fleet. "All ships," she called over the human fleet channel, "initiate Protocol 7, full combat configuration." The other human ships followed suit. Captain Nathan's Wolf's Bane grew additional weapon pods and shield projectors. Captain Julia's Iron Resolve opened like a flower, revealing fighter bays and missile batteries that doubled its size. And Admiral Stone's Retribution's Edge became something that defied description, a ship of such advanced design that Federation sensors could barely track all of its components. "Magnificent," Elder Nix whispered from his archives on Nexus Prime, where he was monitoring the battle. The old record spoke of ships that could reconfigure themselves for any battle. "We thought it was poetry, not engineering." The transformed human fleet struck the Void Reapers like a hammer blow. Weapons that had been concealed opened fire with devastating effect. The enemy's adapted shields and tactics, which had been working moments before, suddenly became useless against completely different forms of attack. Captain Nathan found himself facing 10 Void Reaper ships instead of 5, but his transformed destroyer was more than a match for them. His new weapon systems fired streams of particles that existed in multiple dimensions at once, bypassing the enemy shields entirely. "This is impossible," one of the Void Reaper commanders broadcast on all channels. It was the first time anyone had heard them speak. Their voice was like grinding metal and dying stars. "What are you?" "We are human," Elena replied simply. "And we protect what we choose to protect." The battle turned into a rout. The Void Reapers, who had never known defeat, found themselves outgunned and outmaneuvered by 7 ships that seemed to violate every rule of space combat. Their formations broke apart as human weapons found weaknesses they did not know they had, but the Void Reapers had one last desperate card to play. Their remaining dreadnought, a massive ship the size of a small moon, began charging a weapon that made space itself glow with unholy energy. "Planet Killer," Admiral Keth said with horror. "They are going to destroy Harvex Prime out of spite." "Not today," Admiral Stone said quietly. The Retribution's edge began moving toward the enemy dreadnought, its massive hull glowing with contained power. "Elena, Julia, Nathan, all of you, stay back. This is going to be dangerous." "Admiral," Elena protested, "that ship is too large for any one vessel to handle." "That is where you are wrong," Stone replied. "I am not just any one vessel. I am human." The Retribution's edge approached the Void Reaper dreadnought like a predator stalking its prey. The enemy ship fired everything it had, weapons that could destroy fleets, but somehow the human flagship dodged every shot. It moved through space like a dancer, beautiful and deadly. When Stone's ship finally fired, the weapon it used was unlike anything anyone had ever seen. It was not energy or projectiles or exotic matter. It was something that reached into the heart of the enemy vessel and simply turned off its ability to exist. The Void Reaper dreadnought, which had seemed invincible moments before, began to come apart. Not exploding or burning, but unraveling like a piece of cloth being pulled apart thread by thread. "What kind of weapon is that?" Admiral Keth asked in amazement and terror. "The kind we hope never to use again," Admiral Stone replied sadly. "The kind that convinced us to leave the galaxy the first time." The remaining Void Reaper ships, seeing their mightiest vessel destroyed by incomprehensible technology, finally did what they had never done before in their recorded history. They ran. They jumped to faster-than-light travel and fled the system, leaving behind the wreckage of their fleet and their reputation for invincibility. In the silence that followed, Governor Wells stood on the surface of Harvex Prime and looked up at the stars. His world was safe, his people alive because of 7 ships crewed by beings who were supposed to be legends. "Captain Torre," he said to his aide, "send a message to the human fleet. Tell them that Harvex Prime will never forget what they have done for us." "What should I call them, sir? What title do we give to legends who have become real?" Wells thought for a moment, then smiled. "Call them what they are. Call them our guardians." 2 weeks after the Battle of Harvex Prime, the greatest gathering in galactic history took place on Nexus Prime. The Crystal Meeting Hall had been expanded to 3 times its normal size, but it still felt crowded. Representatives from every major civilization in the galaxy had come to witness this historic moment. Admiral Stone sat at the great round table alongside the Federation leaders. She looked different from the other humans who had revealed themselves. Her silver hair was pulled back in a military style, and her uniform bore marks of rank that no Federation officer recognized. Her eyes had seen too many wars, and her presence commanded respect even from proud beings like General Voss. "The question we face today," Admiral Keth said, addressing the assembled delegates, "is not whether humans have returned to the galaxy. We all saw what happened at Harvex Prime. The question is what happens now." Elder Nix, sitting in his place of honor as the keeper of ancient records, raised his frail hand. "Before we discuss the future, perhaps we should understand the past. Admiral Stone, would you tell us where humanity has been for the last 1,000 years? Stone nodded slowly. "We withdrew from galactic civilization because we had to. 1,000 years ago, we were not the guardians you see today. We were conquerors. We solved every problem with force, every disagreement with war. We were destroying the very galaxy we claimed to protect." Ambassador Lyra, her silver skin shimmering with emotion, asked gently, "What changed? What made you leave?" "We met something worse than ourselves," Stone replied. "An enemy from beyond the galaxy that made us realize what we had become. In fighting them, we learned that sometimes the greatest victory is knowing when to stop fighting. So we made a choice. We would leave the known galaxy, rebuild ourselves, and return only when we were needed." Captain Ross, who had been quiet until now, stood up. He was the human diplomat, chosen to speak for his people because he understood both war and peace. "We spent 1,000 years learning to be better. We built new ships, developed new technology, but most importantly, we learned wisdom. We watched the galaxy from the shadows, protecting it in ways you never knew." General Voss, his armor gleaming under the crystal lights, leaned forward. "You say you were protecting us, but we never saw you. How were you protecting anything?" Commander Elena smiled, and it was not entirely pleasant. "General, how many wars has the galaxy seen in the last 1,000 years? Real wars, not border disputes or trade conflicts, but galactic-scale threats?" "None," Voss admitted grudgingly. "The galaxy has been mostly peaceful." "That was not an accident," Elena said. "Every time a threat began to grow, every time someone tried to build an empire that would destroy the balance, we were there. You never saw us because you never needed to see us. Until now." Lieutenant Davis approached Admiral Stone with a data pad. "Ma'am, intelligence reports confirm that the Void Reapers have pulled back to the Outer Rim. They are regrouping, but they have stopped their advance." "For now," Stone said grimly. "But they will return. The Void Reapers are not like other enemies. They do not give up. They do not negotiate. They do not show mercy. They will study what happened at Harvex Prime and adapt." Governor Wells, who had traveled from his saved world to attend the meeting, raised his voice. "Then what do we do? How do we prepare for their return?" Captain Julia, who had earned fame among Federation pilots for her fighter tactics, answered him. "We work together. The Federation has resources and knowledge that we need. We have technology and experience that you need. Separately, we will all fall. Together, we might survive." The debate that followed was intense but respectful. The Federation leaders had questions about human technology, military doctrine, and long-term intentions. The humans had their own concerns about sharing their advanced weapons with civilizations that might misuse them. Elder Nix listened to it all with the patience of someone who had seen 1,000 years of galactic history. Finally, he stood up, his walking stick clicking on the crystal floor. "If I may," the old scholar said, "I have spent my life studying the past so that we might understand the present. The records speak of an ancient alliance between humans and the early Federation. It was not a treaty between equals, but a bond between protectors and protected. Perhaps it is time to renew that bond." "What do you mean?" asked Admiral Keth. Elder Nix turned to Admiral Stone. "The old records speak of something called the Guardian Compact, a promise that humans made to watch over the younger races of the galaxy. You left to fulfill that promise in a different way. But now you have returned. Will you honor the old compact again?" Stone was quiet for a long moment, looking around the table at the assembled representatives. Finally, she spoke. "The Guardian Compact was broken when we left because we were not worthy of it. We had become the very thing we were supposed to protect against. But if you will have us, if you will trust us despite our past failures, then yes, we will honor the compact once more." General Voss slammed his fist on the table, but this time it was not in anger. "Then let us speak of practical matters. What ships will you commit to our defense? What technology will you share? How do we coordinate our fleets?" The planning session that followed lasted for 3 days. Maps were drawn, supply lines established, training programs designed. The Federation would provide manufacturing capability and raw materials. The humans would provide advanced technology and tactical expertise. Captain Nathan, who had become something of a celebrity after single-handedly destroying 5 Void Reaper cruisers, was put in charge of training Federation pilots in advanced combat techniques. His first class would be the survivors of previous Void Reaper attacks, pilots who had seen their friends die and were hungry for revenge. "The first thing you must understand," Nathan told his new students, "is that space combat is not about having the biggest guns or the heaviest armor. It is about thinking faster than your enemy, moving where they do not expect you to be, and hitting them where they are weakest." Meanwhile, Captain Julia worked with Federation engineers to upgrade their fighter designs. The improvements were modest by human standards, but they would make Federation squadrons 3 times more effective in battle. "We cannot give you our most advanced technology," she explained to a group of frustrated engineers. "Not because we do not trust you, but because you are not ready for it. Your pilots would die trying to use ships their bodies cannot handle. But we can make your current ships better, faster, deadlier." The real breakthrough came when Elder Nix made a discovery in the deepest archives. Buried in files that had not been opened for centuries, he found technical specifications for joint human Federation weapon systems. Designs that had been created during the original Guardian Compact, then forgotten when humans left the galaxy. "Remarkable," he told Admiral Stone as they studied the ancient blueprints. "Your ancestors and ours worked together to create these weapons. They are not purely human technology or purely Federation technology, but something new, something that combines the best of both." Stone smiled as she looked at the designs. "My grandmother told me stories about the old days when humans and Federation builders worked side by side. I thought they were just stories. Perhaps we can make them real again," Elder Nix suggested. 3 months later, the first joint human Federation patrol began operations in the Outer Rim. The squadron consisted of 2 human destroyers and 4 upgraded Federation cruisers, all carrying the new hybrid weapon systems. They found the Void Reapers exactly where intelligence had predicted they would be. The battle was swift and decisive. The Void Reapers had adapted to pure human tactics and pure Federation technology, but they had no defense against the combination of both. The joint squadron destroyed 8 enemy ships without losing a single vessel. "This is just the beginning," Admiral Stone told the celebrating crews over the communication channel. "The Void Reapers will adapt again, and we will have to be ready for them. But today we have proven that the old alliance can work in the new galaxy." As reports of the victory spread throughout Federation space, celebrations broke out on dozens of worlds. For the first time in months, people looked up at the stars without fear. The humans had returned, the alliance was renewed, and the galaxy had guardians once again. In his private study on Nexus Prime, Elder Nix updated the historical records. After 1,000 years, he finally had a proper ending for the story of humanity's departure. But more importantly, he was writing the beginning of a new chapter in galactic history. The age of the Second Guardian Compact had begun, and this time, both humans and Federation were ready for whatever darkness might come from the void between the stars.